A little bit about me. I'm English. I'm a Man United fan. I am a huge fan of David Beckham, to the point where I have my own little mini David Beckham boots collection. And I also don't buy leather football boots. So with my little Beckham signature boots collection and a little bit of help from CM Boots and this pair of Beckham signed Predator Manias, pretty special, we're going to talk about David Beckham, why his boots aren't leather, why he stopped wearing leather, and maybe why he started again now. So let's start with the obvious. David Beckham's signature football boots, the colourways that only he wore from the Predator Absolute onwards, were made out of synthetic materials. So here we've got the Predator Absolute in a specific Beckham colourway, and this one is a synthetic upper. Interestingly enough, when they were bringing out the Absolute for the new Adidas Eternal class in that full white colorway, a lot of people assumed, myself included, that it might be synthetic because it looked very much like a Beckham pair. Turns out that it is a leather boot, and it's just inspired by that particular boot and not actually a remake of it. However, what else have I got? I've got the Adi Power here, this in the Beckham colorway as well, this one being synthetic. They also had the Adi Power SL that was synthetic, but the main line was Taurus leather. And then we have this one, this made for his daughter Harper. So this is a colorway inspired by her, and this is the Predator LZ, again in a Beckham colorway. All synthetic upper boots. Admittedly, the LZ was synthetic for everybody. There is, of course, an exception to this Beckham goes synthetic and then maybe back to leather after he retires rule, and that is the Predator X. Of course, that was Taurus leather. What Beckham seemed to have on his feet was also Taurus leather. The Beckham specific colorways that were released were Taurus leather. And you might be thinking, well, Beckham's then just not wearing kangaroo leather, which is what I would have thought. However, the Adi Power is also Taurus leather, and he had that in a synthetic boot. So the X is basically an outlier. It's a boot that I don't think many pred heads like anyway, so we're going to exclude that. I have no idea why he wore that one in leather, but all the others in synthetic. If you do know, there might be somebody out there who does, drop it down in the comments. Prior to the Absolute, however, Beckham had always worn the Predators in the kangaroo leather, the standard variation. Enter the Predator Mania, probably the most famous David Beckham boot. Now, this wasn't a specific colorway for him, but it's definitely associated with him, that iconic red tongue, the champagne colorway from the World Cup in 2002. So what changed? Well, there's two things really that made the difference. One being that Beckham himself apparently was approached by some animal rights activists and shown some of the footage of what goes into making a kangaroo leather football boot, what actually drives that process and how the kangaroo leather is created, how it's manufactured, how it's harvested, I suppose, and how it's placed onto football boots. And that in itself led Beckham to asking Adidas to make his boots out of synthetic. Now, of course, the Adi Power was a Taurus leather boot, but he still stuck with the synthetic there. So having that influence his decision, then in 2007, David Beckham made the huge switch over to the MLS and over to LA Galaxy. Now, this was a move that seemed to be driven by kind of fame, popularity, and money, of course, because Beckham still could definitely have played at a very high level for many more years, as shown by him moving to PSG and AC Milan afterwards. But the marketing and brand power of Beckham also allowed those moves to be possible, and when Beckham moved over to LA Galaxy, his shirt sales immediately became number one in the whole world, shifting 20,000 units in a week upon him initially signing for the club, and his brand being so big that he made his debut far before he was even ready, with basically the whole game becoming a procession about Beckham. But that speaks to the marketing and brand power of David Beckham. So it's strange to me that it didn't make a bigger impact that Beckham had moved from leather to synthetic. And one of those reasons could have been the move to LA Galaxy in 2007, because also around that time, California passed a law banning the sale of kangaroo leather and other exotic animals in the state. And what that meant was that there was a lot of pressure on Beckham as this headline athlete for Adidas, because even though a lot of players wore the Predator, Beckham really was Mr. Predator, Mr. Adidas. He's signed to a lifetime deal now. His marketing power is huge. So there was pressure immediately placed on the Beckham team, on the Adidas camp. Beckham cannot wear leather boots, to which their response was simply, Beckham does not wear leather boots, it doesn't impact us. Which was very true. He'd been wearing non-leather boots prior to this, and when he was at LA Galaxy, he continued to wear non-leather synthetic boots with some very iconic colorways in the Power Swerve with the Climacool variations that I'm dying to get my hands on. Like, I love these three boots, but I need me some Climacool Power Swerves. While Beckham wasn't wearing leather and he had made a conscious decision to do so, a combination of the fact this law was passed in California banning leather products anyway kind of made it feel a little like Beckham basically was just conforming to this law that was in place, and it wasn't a personal decision, which, based on the information of him choosing to get Adidas to push synthetics to him, actually means it was a decision that he made. The other issue at the time, especially with boots like the Absolute and the Adipower, were that in simple terms, they did not perform as well as their leather counterparts. Now, the Adipower is absolutely one of my favorite boots, if not, I was about to say maybe my favorite Predator, but we might be talking Power Swerve for that. We'll see. But there is no doubting that the leather variation of this boot performed better than the synthetic variation. So when it came down to spending the money, those that were really in the know and wanted the highest performance boot probably weren't buying this. It was people like me who were either avoiding leather or just huge Beckham fans that were picking up the Beckham colorway. With that little historical recap done, that kind of brings us to today. Of course, Beckham's not playing anymore, retired in 2013. Very emotional over at PSG, but since he has retired, he's endorsed a number of these remake boots, including a pair of, again, iconic Beckham style boots, the Predator Precision remake, scoring that iconic goal against Greece in those. They were a leather remake, a kangaroo leather remake, and because Beckham was endorsing them, they were part of a Beckham Zidane pack, he was seen wearing them on pitch in various friendlies and testimonials, and that's all part of his Adidas contract. Now, it's interesting that he has taken a stance previously that he does not want to wear leather, he wants to wear synthetic boots, and moved away from that kangaroo leather, but since he's retired, maybe has gone back on that. Now, this could just be hopeful or wishful thinking from my part, because I do have a bias being somebody who doesn't buy leather, doesn't buy animal products. Beckham has mainly been seen playing in boots like the Adidas Nemesis since he retired, non-leather boots. But as a result of his Adidas lifetime deal contract and getting these boots that were associated directly with him and his history, he has gone ahead and endorsed the leather variation. But in my hopeful head, I suppose, my theory is that he still does want to support not using leather on football boots. But that's entirely personal and a very biased position to take. Of course it is, and I'm happy to admit that because I don't use leather and I don't support it personally. The difference these days is when you take a look at things like the Adipower, as I mentioned before, these days the synthetics are far superior to what they used to be. Even taking a look at something like Hybrid Touch, which came a couple of years after the Adipower there, this is a phenomenal leather-like synthetic. And in 2021, synthetics really have become the main overarching material across all boots, across all brands, with the leather, specifically the kangaroo leather, taking a back seat. So it would be interesting to see how Beckham would react if he was playing today. What boots would he actually go for if Adidas were to put him in something like a Copa, because the Predator itself is now a synthetic boot. It's a woven upper or a prime knit upper. If Adidas were to put Beckham in a Copa, would he refuse? Would he want to go into a synthetic boot? We don't know. We can't ask the man himself. But all we do know is he did go from kangaroo leather to synthetic and maybe halfway back again. Once again, huge thank you to CM Boots for lending me these Champagne Manias. Head over to Instagram and drop him a follow. Remember to like this particular video and get subscribed to the channel for more content. If you want to suggest what content you want to see, head it down in the comments. But you can also head to patreon.com/bootwizard, where you can have a huge influence over the videos I make by just signing up, joining as a Patreon, and then telling me what you want to see. I will always do my best to make that content for my Patreons, but I'd also be interested to know what you think of this whole thing. Did you realize Beckham had gone synthetic? What do you think about that? What do you think about him going back towards promoting leather boots? There's so much to talk about here. If you've got some questions, put them down. I'll either answer them or I might even make a second video. I'm talking really quickly, but that is the end of it. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon.